morning, Malacañang Press Corps. Welcome po sa Task Force Bangon Marawi. Today we have PIA Director General Harold Clavite.
Thank you, Rocky. Good morning, everyone. Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Welcome to another edition of Task Force Bangon Marawi Press Briefing. Kasama natin sa araw nito ang ating Task Force Bangon Marawi spokesperson, Assistant Secretary Toby Purisima, and of course, NEDA Undersecretary Adora Navarro, and OPAP Director Pamela Ann Padilla Salvan. Let's start with some updates. We have some slides to show. Uunahin natin yung forum na ginawa para sa proposed most affected area rehabilitation and reconstruction plan. Giving utmost importance to the opinions of the affected residents, a Marawi Stakeholders Forum on the proposed most affected area rehabilitation and reconstruction plan was held yesterday, May 3rd. Representatives from the LGUs, barangay leaders, imams, ulamas, the academe, and CSOs took part in the assembly. The plan identified public buildings, basic facilities, and structures that will improve access to basic services and boost economic opportunities of the residents of the most affected area of the city of Marawi. The panel of resource persons, which includes Task Force Bangon Marawi Chairperson Eduardo Del Rosario and the City Mayor of Marawi, Mahul Gandamra, were able to exchange information with the stakeholders who raised questions regarding the plan. Findings from the completed discussions with the most affected area stakeholders will form part of the final plan. Before I give you our spokesperson, we'd like to show you this video on an update from TESDA.
The Technical Education and Skills Development Authority offered 3 sets of competency programs in the city in an aim to equip Marawi residents with the knowledge and skills to give them an immediate source of livelihood. Motorcycle small engine system training programs focused on servicing, electrical wiring, and overhauling. It began last April 10 and would last for 18 to 21 days. Almer Bong Nogoy, a trainer sent by TESDA, said that through the training, trainees would be able to repair their own motorcycles and better job opportunities would open up for them. One of the servicing MSES trainees, Muhammad Hassan Dimaporo Jr., shared that he once worked as a driver in Metro Manila. Since the siege, he chose not to leave Marawi because he's worried about his family. He has been searching for various jobs in the city. Sometimes he works as a part-time jeepney driver. Looking for passengers was a challenge for him because the city wasn't as busy as it once was. He, along with the other trainees, joined the program in hope to find work to support their families. He added that they are pursuing this TESDA training for they will learn a lot from it and will be able to use what is being taught in the training. As more residents like Dimaporo return to Marawi and try to get their normal lives back, the Task Force Bangon Marawi's Business and Livelihood Subcommittee continued to come up with programs that would provide better opportunities for them.
Maraming salamat. I now give you Assistant Secretary Toby Purisima for his updates.
Thank you. Thank you very much, DG. Good morning, Malacañang Press Corps. On OPAP's peace conversation, stakeholders of the recovering city have gathered at the Mindanao State University Resort Hotel on 28 April for the second town hall meeting organized by the Office of the Presidential Advisor on the Peace Process. Peace conversation on issues and concerns needing immediate response was the core part of the event. Barangay leaders, displaced residents, representatives from civil society organizations, youth groups, and religious sectors participated and voiced out their opinions, queries, and sentiments regarding Marawi's rehabilitation and recovery. OPAP, a member of the Subcommittee on Peace and Order of the Task Force, assured that these needs will be raised to government agencies for appropriate action. For more effective response and interventions of the task force, OPAP also held a 3-day conflict-sensitive and peace promotion workshop for its member agencies, which will be conducted until today. On updates regarding Kambisita, the Kambisita, or visits of the residents of the most affected area, which started on April 1, continues. As of latest data, 6,597 families, or 48,700 individuals, have entered the most affected area on a scheduled basis to retrieve their belongings and visit their properties before the debris clearing begins. Kambisita of 10 more barangays in sectors 8 and 9 will be conducted until May 10. On the Sari Manok Tent City update, 38 tents in the Sari Manok relocation site inside Marawi City have been replaced by their city government after being damaged by heavy rains and strong winds last Saturday. Most of the families in Site 2 of Sari Manok were forced to evacuate to the Marawi City Hall during that night. They have been able to return to the site now and have received relief goods from the Department of Social Welfare and Development Region 12. The task force continues to monitor the needs of our IDPs and camp managers. On the People's Day, the ARMM Humanitarian Emergency Action Response Team, or ARMHEART, conducted a special People's Day for the evacuees at Barangay Bito, Buadi, Itoa on April 24. Different social services were provided in partnership with the DOH and AFP, including medical and dental checkups, free haircut, and free circumcision. Other partner agencies were or are DOLE, DSWD, DepEd, TESDA, DOST, DAR, DA, BIFAR, and the private sector. That is all for my updates.
Thank you, Saktobi. We'd like to call USEC Adora Navarro.
Thank you, Harold. I have some PowerPoint on the Bangon Marawi Comprehensive Rehabilitation and Recovery Program. As a background, let me tell you that this applies to the areas outside the most affected area. The mandate of NEDA in preparing, in coordination with the different government agencies in preparing the BMCRRP is coming from the administrative order which created the task force Bangon Marawi. It specifically stated there that a comprehensive rehab and recovery program shall be prepared for Marawi and other affected communities. Now, for the most affected area, the framework that is being used there is the executive order that was issued early this year. The idea is because the planning for the most affected area will take a longer time, and that is why it may entail sacrificing the PPAs or programs, projects, and activities for the areas outside the most affected area if we are to wait for the completion of the plan for the most affected area. That's why we are going to release the BMCRRP ahead of the plans for the most affected area. And as of now, this is the status of the formulation of the BMCRRP, as you can see from the screen. So we submitted the draft in March. That was last March 31, and then the task force Bangon Marawi, through a meeting of all agencies, provisionally approved the BMCRRP last April 12. But that provisional approval is subject to further vetting of the cost of programs, projects, and activities. Right now, the cost is more or less 55 billion pesos. Why the need for vetting? Because there are some PPAs, the assumptions for which need to be verified, need to be firmed up. To cite an example, one project that was noticed by the task force chair himself, Secretary Del Rosario, the land acquisition cost for one component of the housing program. The assumed cost of land is 10 times the going rate, and that is because that's what's being offered by the landowners in Marawi. So you see that there is already a speculative activities as a result of the armed conflict, and as a consequence of the flurry of planning activities. People see some people see opportunities, and that's why there are speculative activities. So we really need all the government agencies involved in the Task Force Bangon Marawi. We really need to further vet the assumptions made in the costing of PPAs or programs, projects, and activities. Now, with respect to the fund sources, so how are we going to fund the close to 55 billion peso PPAs? Government funds, we've committed 10 billion pesos from the NDRIM fund, that's in the GAA, and a provisional 5 billion under the unprogrammed appropriations in the 2018 GAA. Why provisional? Because it will depend on whether the government will have excess revenues, excess collection from BIR and the Bureau of Customs. Regular agency budgets are also sources of funds, and the ARMM also committed some portion of their budget for Marawi. There are also donations from private sector and non-government agencies and other non-profit organizations, and that is being the figure is being monitored by the Department of Finance as the head of the Resource Mobilization Support Group. Official development assistance is another source of fund, and there are pledges coming in. So note that pledges are different from what has been actually committed or what has been approved by the government. There's a process for accepting ODA. Okay, next slide. And the PPAs that so there last March 20, when NEDA held a consultation on the ground, we mentioned 867 PPAs. We showed to the people the details of the 867 PPAs, but what was reported then was NEDA presented the setting up or the creation of an eco zone. So hindi po totoo yun. Napakaraming PPAs in the BMCRRP, hindi eco zone as relayed by some actors on the ground. Now, at present, the number of PPAs is close to 900. So the final figure will still be subject to, or will depend on the result of the vetting by the different government agency members of the Task Force Bangon Marawi. Now, what I'm giving you is a summary of the different PPAs. For example, in the sector, local governance and peace building. So there are PPAs under which are meant to support local governance, the governance structures in the city, in the province, and also in the barangays. And then social healing and peace building PPAs. And then housing and settlement PPAs, for example, PPAs on transitory shelter, permanent housing, financial assistance, home materials assistance, and other financing assistance from government entities, particularly government corporations in the housing sector. Livelihood and business development PPAs include support services for farmers and fisher folks, emergency livelihood and restoration programs for internally displaced persons, capacity building and skills training for IDPs, returnees, and out-of-school youth, tourism development and promotions programs, cooperative development programs. For physical infrastructure, the PPAs are rehab, construction of transport, infra and utilities, construction of social infra, rehab, construction of livelihood and tourism support facilities, and reconstruction or construction of government facilities. Under social services, there are many PPAs here and categorized as provision of educational support programs, provision of cash assistance, and implementation of various health and nutrition programs. For land resource management, the PPAs under land management include activities related to reconstruction of cadastral survey data, lot survey and titling, land use classification, and very important activity, creation of potential land conflict resolution mechanisms and options on the ways forward. And then there are also PPAs under environmental management. Now, what are the ways forward after finalizing the BMCRRP? We will present this for approval. We will present this to the cabinet and get the approval of the president. And after that, and actually, this is already being undertaken, the submission and processing of project proposals for funding under the 2018 NDRRMF. So remember that there's already that 10 billion fund under the current GAA, and the Office of Civil Defense and the HADC as a task force chair, they're already accepting proposals for funding under the 10 billion NDRIM fund. So those proposals are being processed batch by batch. So that will continue. No, and there is a greater firming up of procedures once the BMCRRP is approved. So right now, because the BMCRRP is not yet officially approved, wala namang problema. The OCD and the HADC can still process it. They just ask for certifications from concerned government officials whether these PPAs are actually vetted and firmed up as part of the overall rehab program. Now, for the next step, and also already ongoing, some parts of it are already ongoing, the resource mobilization for the PPAs. So yung resource mobilization will be actively led by the Department of Finance. And the last that I heard is that the DOF would like to have a pledging session with potential ODA sources. And they also are thinking of floating Marawi bonds. And this funding support can be used as agency budget support. Some can be directly used to fund specific projects. So everything is still being discussed under the resource mobilization support group. So that's all for now, DG Harold.
Daghang salamat, Yusek Adora. Now we call on Director Salvan for updates from OPAP.
Thank you, DG Harold. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the Malacañang Press Corps. As a member of the TFBM Subcommittee on Security, Peace and Order, OPAP contributes to the sectoral outcome of governance and peace building through the implementation of its social healing and peace building program. Under this program, we undertook first and foremost the conduct of a conflict context analysis with inputs from various sectors to inform all our interventions. To ensure that all interventions of agencies are appropriately designed to be conflict sensitive, the conflict context analysis was also submitted as Chapter 1 of the Post-Conflict Needs Assessment, and we also sit in the various subcommittees. OPAP's focus is to ensure that as government is building and rebuilding the physical infrastructures for recovery and rehabilitation of Marawi and its people, we are also just as importantly building and rebuilding their social infrastructures and relationships with one another. That is why our processes, as I will describe later, are very heavy on social preparation. Moreover, we focus on the interventions for vulnerable groups among the IDPs, the women, the youth, and the persons with disabilities. So what are we currently undertaking? As ASEC Purisima said earlier, we are facilitating the conduct of town hall meetings. This is part of our initiative to provide a regular space for people to get accurate information on recovery and rehabilitation efforts, surface issues and concerns and grievances. But it's not just a platform to air these grievances, it's also providing a platform for constructive engagement on solution seeking among the national government agencies who are implementing projects for Task Force Bangon Marawi, the IDP representatives, people's organizations, CSOs, barangay officials, and community leaders. The first one was held last March 22, and then the second one was held just last Saturday, April 28. And the next will either be on May 17 or 18. The proposal in the last town hall meeting is that this be done every 2 weeks, every first and third Wednesday of the month. And this is also in response to the people's clamor to get regular information, which has been a source of frustration for them when they do not receive information, when there's lack of information or even exaggerated information at times, which is exploited by those who want to sow even more conflict. Currently, this is at the municipal level, but we shall be cascading this down to the barangay level as we recognize that the people of Marawi are not just survivors. They are and can be agents for peace and partners in recovery and rehabilitation. So nothing for them without them is the principle. Top issues raised in the last town hall meetings were livelihood, continuing humanitarian support for IDPs who are in evacuation centers, transitional shelters, and the home-based, provision of employment, preservation of culture and Islamic tradition. The youth, of course, is a vulnerable group that we shall be giving special attention to. The second update is on the setting up of local conflict resolution mechanisms. So we are in the preparatory phase of providing capacity building interventions, which are alternative dispute resolution and coaching to identified local leaders recognized and respected by the community to strengthen their capacities in resolving conflicts at its early stages to prevent their escalation to violence. Then OPAP will also be providing capacity building for religious leaders, providing a venue for them to come together, train them on facilitation, peace education, and how the culture of peace may be integrated in their khutbahs or their Friday sermons. There's also the Build Peace project in the 72 barangays. OPAP will facilitate the formulation of the barangay development plans following participatory approaches and mainstreaming. We are also preparing for the College Transitional Education Assistance Project for 700 Marawi-affected students. Cash assistance for school year 2018 to 2019 amounting to 10,000 pesos with peace formation shall be given, recognizing the economic impact of the conflict on the families. Priority shall be given to graduating students. And then we have also provision for assistive devices for PWDs. For Ramadan, as we did last year, we are designing a series of activities for its observance in solidarity with our Muslim brothers and sisters. And then, as also reported earlier, today is the last day of the capacity building course on conflict-sensitive and peace-promoting practice for TFBM member agencies, staff, and Lanao del Sur LGUs. So those are all my updates. Thank you.
Maraming salamat, Director Salvan. Rocky?
MPC questions? Ace Romero to be followed by Pia and then Confi.
ASEC Purisima, any update on the Swiss challenge?
Negotiations are still ongoing with the initial developer, the Bagong Marawi Consortium, because we're still fine-tuning and finalizing the terms of the contract, of the development, of the project development. So once this is done, we will continue with the Swiss challenge. We're still on track with the target, which is groundbreaking by June. So on track pa naman to. We're just finalizing the terms.
Wala pang specific date yung Swiss challenge?
Wala pa. Definitely this May. Definitely gagawin yung Swiss challenge this May. And then on track tayo sa groundbreaking by June.
Pero negotiations, wala pa rin pong... tapos na ba yung negotiations?
Hindi.
Kailan matatapos rather yung negotiations?
Soon. The negotiations, konti na lang yung inaayos on the technical and legal aspects, and then proceed na tayo with the Swiss challenge.
Thank you po.
Okay, Pia?
Sir, I'm looking at the schedule na binigay nyo nung una, and you said na you target to complete the Swiss challenge by April 25 and then awarding of the project to the winning bidder by April 31. Ano po yung naging reason sa delay, sir?
Actually, the original schedule, the revised calendar, nakaschedule doon ang Swiss Challenge between now and the last week of May. Hindi April, last week of May. So until around May 24, until the end of May. Yun ang pagkakaalala ko dun sa updated calendar natin. And then June yung groundbreaking. So on track pa naman tayo dito. Binamadali natin yung pag-finalize ng terms. Dahil kung maaalala nyo, pinapasok natin dito yung inputs sa consultations na ginagawa. At yung last consultation nga ay naganap kahapon. At patuloy pa rin ito. So lahat nung nire-raise na points ng ating mga IDPs, ng ating mga stakeholders on the ground, those are being taken into consideration by the task force in finalizing the terms of the contract or the project development at yun ang isa-Swiss challenge natin. I would just like to raise a few points. Some of the issues raised yesterday during the stakeholders forum, Chairperson Del Rosario clarified a few things regarding the development in the most affected area. Number one, no private land in the most affected area will be forcibly taken. Number two, slightly damaged buildings will not be touched. Number three, as soon as horizontal development is completed in 18 months, in an estimated 18 months, private houses and buildings can be reconstructed provided that the owners will be able to secure a permit from the city government. And number four, cultural, historical, traditional, and religious values will be observed. So significant dito, yun nga, after the debris clearing and horizontal development between now and 18 months from now, pwede nang bumalik ang mga residents ng most affected area at papayagan na silang mag-rebuild, no? Provided that they get the necessary permits. So kasama yan, nagbunga yan sa konsultasyon na ginawa natin ng task force sa ating mga stakeholders.
So right now, sir, may major terms po ba doon sa proposal na nabago because of the consultations?
Wala naman. In terms of major terms, wala. Fine-tuning na lang. Particularly locations, no? Locations of where these public infrastructure will be built. Remember, ang kasama dito sa development ng most affected area ay public infrastructure. Yung private infrastructure, yung private homes, ito ay gagawin, ang magre-rebuild nito ay ang ating mga stakeholders.
Another question po for Yusek Navarro. Ma'am, you said that the DOF will be conducting a pledging session to encourage ODAs. Could you give us details on this and kung meron na po bang mga bansa or mga organizations na nagbigay ng interest to join?
Wala pang details, no details yet on the pledging session, and but our NEDA public investment staff is monitoring the announcements by the different bilateral and multilateral partners on their commitment to provide support for Marawi. So it's being monitored, but we cannot say, because your particular question is on the details of the pledging session, there are no details yet coming from the DOF. But in anticipation of that, NEDA is monitoring the interest of the different ODA partners.
So far po, could you give us an update kung sino-sino na po yung nag-pledge ng mga ODA so far?
Pledges are based on the list of our public investment staff, US, Japan, China, Spain, Australia, and then on the multilaterals, World Bank and ADB. Now, with respect to multilateral support, I can mention this na because actually there is an ongoing technical support to Task Force Bangon Marawi by the World Bank, and the ADB is also rendering technical support to Task Force Bangon Marawi. They have specialists who are helping the different member agencies of the task force. There is also a possible joint financing, co-financing by ADB and JICA, co-financing of a DPWH proposal for the reconstruction and development plan. for Greater Marawi. That's how they titled the DPWH proposal. And a technical assistance will be conducted soon for this.
May mga amounts po ba itong pledges, ma'am? Especially for the countries?
There are mentioned amounts, but since these are not yet confirmed, so we don't want it to be coming from the government. So I'm sure that the members of the media are monitoring the announcements of the different ODA partners, but every ODA has to be treated under a process for accepting ODA, no? So yung mentioned amounts by the ODA partners, no, as long as hindi pa siya approved, hindi pa rin ito yung what's recorded as the definite amount in the government records.
Okay, Comfy?
Hi, good morning, ma'am. Ma'am, follow-up lang po sa fundraising about the bond flotation. How much are you planning to raise from this flotation, and will this be a domestic flotation or international flotation?
Okay.
And who will underwrite?
Okay, there are no details yet that have reached NEDA at this point, no. I remember that the DOF has a statement about it on their website, or perhaps you can dig it up. But it's a tentative amount, the amount that was mentioned in the DOF statement. I remember that it's, if I'm not mistaken, 20 billion or so, yeah. But it's in the DOF website, the statement about the bond flotation.
Okay, Ace Romero, to be followed by Joseph.
Yusek Navarro, you mentioned about speculations about the costs. Can you give details on that? Yung 10 times sa land.
Okay, that's one observation that surfaced during the Task Force Bangon Marawi All Agencies meeting on the ground. We held it at the Task Force field office on the ground. And inisa-isa kasi namin yung PPAs, no? And upon checking with the government agencies and the LGUs why the cost of a certain land acquisition item in the housing program has different PPAs, has different projects, and then there's one particular item which the land acquisition cost is surprisingly huge. And then we learned that it's because the assumption is the land cost is 10 times what was the regular amount before per square meter. So it's just an illustration of the concerns that we're facing in the vetting of the cost of the different PPAs.
So magkano po yung tinaas versus yung normal na amount?
I cannot specifically recall, pero we can dig up the records of the minutes of discussion and perhaps.
So apparently, some people are taking advantage of the rehabilitation efforts.
That's true in in post-disaster situations. There are stakeholders even on the ground who are taking advantage of a crisis situation. So to be expected na yan, and that's why the government is being careful in ascertaining the amounts and even the locations of the proposed projects, no. That's why the different government agencies send units on the ground to look at the proposed locations of different PPAs. Actually, the proposed locations of the different PPAs became a determinant in checking for duplication. So NEDA has a team of different sector specialists looking at the different PPAs, and isa yon sa indicator, no, na nakikita namin kung eto nga bang PPA na to is not possibly duplicating another PPA. So the location is one indicator. So ongoing ngayon yan, kumbaga different passes, no. So hopefully ito na yung final pass in the review of the different PPAs.
Thank you, Yusek.
Okay, may follow-up muna si Comfy. Okay.
Ma'am, at the end of the day, who will determine the ceiling ng fair market value ng land value sa Marawi?
Okay. My understanding is that is also a result of a negotiation between the landowner and the cluster of housing agencies, no? So you asked for a ceiling, but actually the principle is whatever is the market value, no? But the market value depends on the negotiation. Now, if there is a pronouncement from a government official that will effectively say that no, we won't accept 10 times the former market value of the land in Marawi, then that pronouncement of an official can be effective in sort of reducing the speculative activities. And I'm hoping that the task force chair will, make strong statements to address this.
Okay, Comfy. Joseph?
Ma'am, is this a widespread practice? And who are these people trying to sell?
I believe it's not a widespread practice naman.
What do you mean, not a widespread?
It does not. It's not true for all the PPAs which will require land. It was observed only in one PPA so far, or in one
and the PPA
project.
is a housing project, yes?
It's a housing project.
Would you know the location?
Kasi ang daming
Yeah,
PPAs,
but this
no?
one in
But
particular.
we can dig it up later and answer your question later.
And
But
suppose-
with respect to land acquisition for infrastructure projects of DPWH, we're not hearing speculative activities naman.
So this is just a small, well,
For
estimate-
a housing.
For a housing. So, paano yun, ma'am? Would you just relocate the project or choose another location?
It will really depend on the negotiation between the housing agencies and the landowners. No, if they will be able to come up with a reasonable price, then there's no need to find an alternative location.
These are residents
So
themselves, ma'am.
it's a question that cannot be answered by NEDA as a planner, no. So it will really depend on the ability of the shelter agencies to negotiate.
You need their land because you want to put up
Because-
housing projects there, correct?
Yeah, because housing projects need to be located inside Marawi. So the internally displaced persons have to go back to Marawi. So that's why the government is looking for available lands inside Marawi.
And the ones who own the lands are residents themselves in the area?
Yes.
Okay. So, okay, as a Purissima, you mentioned a consortium. Would we know the companies involved in this consortium?
I don't have with me I mentioned it in previous briefings, so I just don't have the list of these 9 companies that compose the Bagong Marawi Consortium. No? I can get back to you on that. No? But again, we'd like to clarify na ito pa lang yung initial consortium na napili na kung saan tayo nagne-negotiate. Pero hindi pa to yung final o hindi pa sila yung siguradong consortium na gagawa mismo ng development ng most affected area. Malalaman lang natin yun after ng Swiss Challenge.
And we're negotiating what terms? Like what, the plans or the
Well, the plans,
costings?
yung minimum requirements, where this will be located, these public infrastructures, where this will be located, and also, yun nga, yung bunga ng ating konsultasyon, kung merong fine-tuning, kung perhaps dun sa size nung mga infrastructure na yon, yung actual location ng infrastructure na yon, o kung may idadagdag pa. That's why the amount of the development of the most affected area is still a moving target. The chairperson, Secretary Del Rosario, mentioned 2 briefings ago that the figure then was around 17.2 billion, no? Yan ay wala pa tayong update dyan kung gumalaw pa yan, pero until ma-finalize yan, it's still considered a moving target. But that's what we're looking at, around 17.2 billion for the development of the most most affected area, in addition to the estimated 55. So around 72.2 ang tinitignan natin ngayon for the development of both the most affected area and outside the most affected area.
All right, sir. Ilang barangays sa most affected? You mentioned
24.
24 barangays.
Yes, 24 and 250 hectares itong MAA.
Okay, so you mentioned kanina na before yung mga private owners of the houses there can come in and rebuild their houses after 1.5 years. Do I take it to mean that that's the same timetable that you have to put up the master plan and then rehabilitate the whole area? So 1.5 years?
Actually, ano pa lang yan, yung horizontal development na tinatawag natin. Because we estimate sa laki ng area, 250 hectares, matatagalan talaga yung debris clearing at debris management. So kasi kasama dito, meron pa mga unexploded ordnance, mga IEDs pa rin dyan. Kaya kasama ito kasi this is really a safety concern for our IDPs or for the residents of the most affected area. No? So kapag tapos na yung debris clearing at tapos na rin yung horizontal development, pwede na silang bumalik at magtayo ng kanilang private properties there, subject to permits and regulations by the city government.
Will they receive government help in probably rebuilding their houses?
As I understand, a compensation bill is being authored by Congressman Adyong of the 1st District of Lanao del Sur. We await the filing of this compensation bill, and then we can answer more definitely those questions regarding payments to our residents in the most affected area.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, Julie. Last question na tayo kay Julie.
Julia Aurelia po of Inquirer. To Yusek Navarro, you mentioned earlier that you noticed yung land speculation, speculative activity as to one PPA, which is a housing project. Do you have more details about it, like gaano kalaki yung land we're talking about? And if you can't answer that question, what's the progress of the vetting activity for other PPAs? Like ilang percent na yung na-check natin na may speculative activity ba sa iba? Like, ilang percent na yung na-vet natin? Thank you.
Okay, so naaalala ko na ng konti, the previous market value, 500, but 500 pesos per square meter, and then may asking price which reached us na 5,000 pesos per square meter. So now specific locations, I think iba-iba no. Now your second question, anong percentage na yung vetting? But by the way, the vetting is not all about speculative activities. There are cases then na there are PPAs proposed by government agencies, and then meron din from LGUs that are better combined as one PPA, no? So iba-iba yung cases. Right now I can safely say na we are 90% plus in the vetting process.
Okay, no more questions? Okay, thank you. Thank you, DG Harold Clavite.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Yusek Navarro, Director Salvan, and ASEC Toby Purisima. Thank you, Malacañang Press Corps. Back to our main studio sa Radyo Pilipinas and People's Television Network.